3 million Kenyans are at the risk of starving as the government and aid agencies once again rush to mitigate another drought crisis barely a year since facing another one that was declared a national disaster. So far, 6 counties have run out of food. That is Garissa, Wajir, Isiolo, Tana River, Kajiado and Kilifi. Meanwhile, Mandera, Marsabit, Kitui, Taita Taveta have barely enough to eat. The government says it will spend 3.8 billion shillings between now and April to reach about 3 million Kenyans facing food insecurity. And the Kenya Red Cross has once again made a 1 billion shilling appeal to reach about 1.3 million people or 1.3 million affected families. Right, we'll take a look at your feedback again right now. On Twitter, Team Wangemi says, we cannot be cutting down trees, and when drought hits us, we start pointing fingers at the government. KNCCI Transoia, the ravaging droughts pose a great danger, especially to entrepreneurs who are keen on venturing into the agribusiness sector. The government's ban on illegal logging will help in safeguarding the forest cover that triggers rain. J. Wanzala, it's time we have a tree planting day once in every term, that is 4 months, lest Kenya becomes a desert soon. Right, on Facebook, the page is it's Citizen TV Kenya. Adan Warsame says we should start planting over 5 million trees every year. All the forests have been destroyed and the country is facing serious deforestation. We need tree planting campaigns in all the counties. Ben Bogo, irrigation. The government should up the game on irrigation projects without delay. For example, if Galana Kulalu project is given priority, it can save millions of hungry people. And Moses Ethaiba, counties must initiate countermeasures and then ask for added support from the central government. Keep talking to us on Facebook at Citizen TV Kenya, on Twitter. Use the hashtag Sunday Live and text us on 22422. Abbas Kuled is the Secretary General, Kenya Red Cross Society. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tonight, you have launched this appeal now, but first, how bad is this situation? And we're talking about these 6 counties being labeled as red. What do we mean? How bad is the situation?
Well, we mean that there is a deficit. We mean that there is a problem, and if they are not supplemented or complemented with what people have, then they would be at a tipping point already. And what we are saying is we don't need any Kenyan to get at a tipping point. So we need to avoid to see anyone malnourished, kwashako, or people say that they've lost life because of food. So far, thank God, no one has lost life, but we don't need to get there in the first place. Right,
I was almost coming to that question, actually, whether there are people who have lost lives. You would know because the government has dismissed this. You're saying that hasn't happened, thank God.
It hasn't happened.
Right. How long do these counties have, these areas have before it gets out of hand? Because you launched this appeal last week on Thursday.
You see, the drought has been ongoing, Hussein, for the last 1 year. It's February last year, His Excellency the President declared a national disaster. That national disaster has not been declared as now having been warned, because we have had 3 seasons of rain failures. We had the failure of the rain in 2016, first of all, October, November, December. Then by the March, April, May rains last year also failed. What we also know is last year's November, December rains was sufficient enough. So 3 seasons back to back, we have had insufficient rains. So this has been prolonged drought for this period. There are even indication now that the next rainy season may not even be that good enough.
Yeah, the department is warning already.
There are some parts of the country that will have good rains, but many parts that will not have rain. And it's the same suspect areas of the arid and semi-arid, and this is where the problem most is. So we're saying that this has not just happened by sheer accident. And even with best planning, you could not plan that there are 3 seasons of rain failures and you expect to be normal. So this situation of now, the alert that we've gotten into is going to be a full-blown drought if we do not have rains that will not be sufficient. And we already know they will not be sufficient. So we're here, but what can we do to mitigate the situation is what we are saying. Right. So we all the time, of course, blame government for this and that, for everything. But we all have a role and responsibility. An organization like Red Cross, which is auxiliary to the government, enacted by act of law by Parliament, we're supposed to be assisting and other humanitarian actors, the private sector. It's a time when we say every Kenyan has a role to play to be our brothers and sisters keepers.
One of those roles you'd want them to play right now, the emergency we have is the donations, obviously.
Sure.
You're appealing for 1 billion, I think slightly over 1 billion shillings.
Sure.
First, have you received anything yet since Thursday?
Well, since we launched Thursday this appeal, we've got an initial indication of 7.5 million, thanks to Safaricom. 7.5 million that we think we want to use it for purchase of seeds in Tharaka Nithi, in the dry parts of Tharaka Nithi, because we believe in some of these counties, if we get the right seeds, their farming communities, they can actually plant and we can see a bumper harvest. What we saw in spite of the failure of the rains October, November last year, we gave 250 metric tons as Red Cross of seeds, green gram seeds to Kitui County. The county themselves also bought about 100 tons themselves. So with about 350 metric tons of seed that were given and planted in Kitui County, close to 15,000 metric tons of green grams have been harvested. If you go to Kitui today, you'll see green grams in all the markets and trading places. November last year, we gave the seeds in November, and by early January this year, communities had harvested these green grams in spite of the rain failure, even in Kitui, the short rainy season last season, which is actually the planting season. So we're saying there are other types of crops that can be planted that are drought tolerant, like the green grams or dengu, as opposed to maize. So we're telling people and farmers in the country, in areas where we have shortfall of rains, you don't have to plant maize because you're just putting your money on the ground, and after a week or 2 or 3, it will come down. So you rather plant crops that are more traditional and drought tolerant, like the green grams, which does very well and has a better price and nutrition-wise even better. You saw the governor of Kitui was in India last week trying to market the green grams. But we are saying also too, for counties that are able to produce good quantities of green grams, like Tharaka Nithi, Meru, Kitui, Machakos, Makueni, they should be talking to the central government, for the central government to buy this grain from them, just like they buy from the maize farmers in the Rift Valley, so that you can, and this can go into the National Grain Strategic Reserve, and I'm sure communities empowered to do that will actually go out and grow in big way.
So, from how you're saying, yes, it's everybody's problem in Kenya.
Yes.
But from what you're telling me right now on the success story in Kitui,
yes,
and I'm sure you've had others, and we'll talk about them, the other irrigations that you launched and have been successful, would you blame the government for anything? Because we find ourselves in a similar predicament year in, year out. It's almost like a trend now. We knew, the Met warned, we knew we didn't have enough rain since 2016 November.
Yes.
Again last year, throughout last year,
yes,
the Met has again warned for the better part of this year. Do you think the government is handling this right? We've seen from the tweets, from the feedback, people talking about how the government would or should have handled this better.
Well, Hussein, we can be here all night and all day and lament and blame the government, blame everyone that needs to be blamed. But I don't think this is what we should be doing as a nation. We're very good in criticizing one another. The point is, what can we do to change our attitude and our behavior? What can we also do, maybe the government, to look for other avenues of doing this business without having them saying they do everything themselves? They could look at avenue of working with some of these other actors in the private sector and in the humanitarian industry, for those who have capacity to do some of these things. We've tried since the drought 2011, because that to me was a turning point for us as Kenya Red Cross, where we're saying, in spite of the drought, we can't blame it all on weather all the time, that we can deal with this issue decisively ourselves as a country of educated people and with technology and science that is at our disposal. In spite of the failures of the rain, we still do get enough rain, water flowing into the Indian Ocean through Tana River, and water flowing into Lake Victoria through the many sources, whether it is from Busia in Budalangi, or whether it is in Migori and Kericho sides. There's plenty of water. What we're saying is, how do we better harvest this water? And harvest this water so that when we have these major dams that we've talked for donkey years, they actually are done, and they are done properly, and that then you could use irrigation and technology, because people talk about other countries around the world that are all deserts and who have turned the desert into farmlands because of their management of using technology and using irrigation as a means. And today we are largely agriculture, rain-fed agriculture as a country, but we are saying through irrigation we can address some of these issues. So as someone was earlier saying, irrigation is one thing, but for me is using the appropriate technology, giving the right resources in the right places, and working this for the long term and not just walk in, walk out.
Since 2011, which you have referred to, Kenyans for Kenya, you have had success stories.
Sure.
Just give us an example.
Well, as we recall, you know, Kenyans for Kenya was one time in a lifetime that we remember as Kenyans to be very proud that we came together as a nation, and we raised about 10 million US dollars, 1 billion shilling we raised, of which 300 million was in kind and 700 was in cash. Of the 700, what was decided by then the organizing of the management board, including the private sector and the Kenya Red Cross, was it was decided that 50% would go in mid to long-term development projects and the other would go into food assistance. So about 350 million shillings was used to do 3 projects as a pilot basis. One is a farm in Walda. We had 200 acres of land.
Walda is in
Moyale, where we drilled 4 boreholes and brought the 4 boreholes water different into one dam, and from the dam then we pumped the water into the farm. We've been able to do roughly about 80 acres. And those 80 acres are until today, as we talk, still producing food. We had the last harvest now of onion, butternuts, watermelon, and we will now grow grass so that the farmers, the pastoralist community around can use that grass. The second project was in Chemolingot, where we did a dam. That dam had, of course, initially, without enough rainfall, it didn't have enough water. But July last year, there were good rains in that part of Baringo, and that dam was full of water. The dam still has water today. The third project was in Kaikor, in Turkana North, which was the epicenter of the drought in 2011. And you can go there. We did a farm. We did, again, boreholes, which we got into doing what we call shed nets and farming. So water for animals and water for human beings, and then part of it for farming.
So if these are success stories, and these are places ordinarily today would be facing starvation, isn't it?
Sure.
They are not today because of these interventions.
Yes.
And that is why I asked that question before.
Yes.
I mean, are we handling this the right way? If you've managed to turn around a few places with few populations in a few areas,
yes,
since 2011, there are so many other places since 2011 up to date that are still suffering, yet every year, year in, year out, the government uses billions of shillings to try and reach people with food aid.
Well, for me, I don't think food aid is a solution, but I could actually say, like I earlier said too, from 2011, for us was a learning point as Kenya Red Cross and a turning point. I can take you today, Hussein, here and now, to at least 30 different projects countrywide that we've done in similar fashion. Small farms, for pastoralist communities, for agro-pastoralist communities, for farming communities. Where I can take you to, Garissa, for example, Dadaab refugee camp. We're talking about deforestation. If you want to actually see the seriousness of deforestation in this country, I invite every Kenyan. Actually, I would invite the new Minister for Environment, to make that his priority visit, to go and see how the little vegetation that was there before the refugees came 26 years ago has now totally been wiped out. For miles and miles, you could see nothing but barren land. But we have started trying to plant trees over the last 2-3 years as Kenya Red Cross. It's not my role, but we gave ourselves that responsibility. And you can see it's turning around. You can actually turn around the whole place into a forest with indigenous trees. I can take you to Kwale, to Kinango, a project that was commissioned by His Excellency the President last year, in a place where, because of charcoal burning and selling, the complete area in Kinango, Kwale had been completely wasted, the forest, and now it is barren. So we built a dam, and with the dam, 110 acres of irrigation, where there is fish in the lake, there is water for farming, water for human beings, water for animals. You can go there today and you'll see the farm. You can go to Marafa, you can go to Lamu, you can go to Garissa, you can go to Kitui, you can go to Makueni, and many more places in Kibwezi, even Kajiado, that we can show you. So what we're saying is we need resources, and I would actually, we have been talking to the government to see if they could give us some of those resources that we can multiply this project. But we need to now scale up, because yes, you'll do the 1 mega galana depending on the availability of water, Kulalu, but you can do many more even in this arid and semi-arid. And the land is fertile, as barren as it may be. These are virgin lands. We have in Kurungu in Samburu. I can take you and show you a farm in Samburu, in the middle of nowhere.
Finally, what do you plan to do differently, this time? Last time you said there was food aid and all that. This time you're saying food aid is not the best solution. You've talked about seeds, one thing you'll do.
Yes.
When you receive this money, hopefully people will donate. What else will you do?
Well, so there's water issue, there's health issue, and there's nutrition issue. But we're saying in terms of our response, the major bulk of our 1 billion shilling appeal will go in two ways. One is in cash transfers. You know, World Humanitarian Summit in 2016 in Istanbul decided, the global meeting, that issues of food aid should be phased out, and we should go on more and more into cash transfer with technology that we have today. It also gives people their dignity, but more importantly, it also takes away the possibility of mismanagement and corruption. All these tender, when people are doing procurement of food, and there's always been allegation that, you know, those who are empowered to procure end up in a corrupt system. We're saying even in logistics of transporting the food is too costly, and also it could be mismanaged, and the actual distribution. So last year, during the ongoing current drought, 80% of our appeal was based on cash transfer through using M-Pesa. I mean, it's one of the best innovations that has come out of Kenya in the last many years now, M-Pesa. So we are able to transfer money at the press of a button in Nairobi to an individual person who has been registered and assessed and found to be in need. So we've been transferring 3,000 shillings every month, and they have been getting this since May last year, in fact. And we're saying now we want to continue doing the same. So the bulk of the appeal is in cash transfers in 11 counties, including the 4 with the highest emergency, but even with the others. Then issues of water, where the boreholes have collapsed, pumps are not working, or because they're using diesel generator powered, which is having a problem. We will be buying solar generators because we have sunshine. It's less cost in terms of maintaining and running. We're also going to look at nutrition. We're going to look at health, because the cholera outbreak, like you earlier said, in Garissa, Tana River, and now Moranga, and you'll see this happening many more places because of quality of water, insufficient water, and the quality of the water. When the rains come, there'll still be waterborne diseases.
Right. Thank you so much. Abbas Kuled is Secretary General, Kenya Red Cross Society, and he's appealing to you, of course, to donate. They've made that appeal. In fact, I should let him do it.
Well, our appeal to brothers and sisters in this country, and we're also appealing to our international partners, is to say we're yet again at this stage, and we're asking for any well-wishers, individuals. You can individually donate, private sector companies, communities, schools. Again, it's being our brothers and sisters keepers. So it's sad to come back to you once again, but we have no choice but to do so.
Right, thank you so much. Abbas Kuled is the Secretary General, Kenya Red Cross Society, and wish you all the best in this endeavor. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is Sunday Live on Twitter. Text us on 22422. We're back after this break.